Get ready for a cuteness overload with today's topic, the Mythuinn folk. These tiny humanoids were introduced in the Savage Coast Monsters Compendium, and they deserve a bigger spotlight than getting dumped on the internet without any fanfare. They're just too cuddly not to get a mention. Take the cutest bear cub, shrink it down to the size of your palm, make them naturally curious, and give them magical evasion powers. Get ready for your players to demand one for a pet, familiar, or new best friend. Just remember they are of average intelligence and are almost impossible to capture. Welcome to Mystara. I'm Mr. Welch, and I hope you like Saccharin. The Mythwin folk appear in a single D&D book, and despite it being the Savage Coast Monsters guide, they appear nowhere else on the Red Coast. Instead, they're found high in the mountains and in Arctic climates, which means you can put them anywhere because the latter region is found nowhere near the Savage Curse. It's like mentioning them in the Suriname tourist guide with a note at the bottom saying you aren't likely going to find them there as they are normally found in Iceland. They resemble tiny bears, standing 7 to 9 feet tall. And there's the continuity error of the day. They managed to work in a continuity problem in a 3-column article on a tiny bear man. Remember, 1 apostrophe means foot and 2 apostrophes mean inches, even if there are more apostrophes. I did look, but Nigel Tufnell's name does not appear anywhere in this book. The folk live in small villages, typically carved out of ice, with populations reaching several hundred in each area. They're good aligned, but tend to avoid outsiders as many view them as food or pets. Mythuinn isn't their name, it's the name the ER elves use for them. The folk's language is very high-pitched and spoken quickly, making it almost impossible for them to hear, let alone understand. It requires an ability check to even hear them when they're speaking their language. Think of a hamster beatboxing on helium and you have a general idea of the problem. They will learn Elvish to communicate with outsiders, something that they have learned to speak very slowly, and even then they still sound rushed. Mythwin experience time at a different rate than larger races, as they only live at best a decade. For them, it's like time is dilated. It doesn't mean they move faster or similar, but explains their language and why they seem to treat everything in their life as a priority. They want to get as much living done in their short lifespans as possible. They aren't violent. When your primary weapon does 1d2 points of damage, the fighter class usually isn't for you. But they still love to explore, and they will often travel from their villages to see the world. At least the world they can reach, which is usually about 10 miles in their lifetime. While they seem harmless, and yes, damage output isn't their specialty, they do have several magical defenses that come naturally to them. They can turn invisible at will, though this acts like a spell, so attacking will end the effect. This has resulted in outsiders doubting their existence. It's hard to spot a tiny little bear, let alone one that disappears at will. If enemies get near, the entire village will just vanish. Failing that, they can dimension door at will, so chasing one down is almost impossible as they can just teleport from one spot to the next and then turn invisible. And if you get desperate and carpet bomb them because you hate cuteness, they have an innate luck ability that lets them re-roll a saving throw or ability check once per day. Now we've got a tiny, fun-loving bunch of bear cubs that have no offensive capability, have problems communicating with outsiders, and live far away from everybody else. So how does that benefit players? Well, as it turns out, the folk really want to see the world and are more than happy to join a party that will take them with them. Their luck power can be transferred to others as long as it's given willingly and the Mythwin touches them. Remember, these guys only have a few hit points, so try not to get blown up, devoured, or roll over in your sleep. Then you have to explain to the rest of the party where your new Mythwin fur socks came from. They are a highly social and organized race, with Mythwin patrols keeping an eye out for visitors, predators, and other threats. If discovered, they alert each other with their tiny little horns, which produce a sound outside the hearing range of most creatures. Then the folk go invisible or teleport away, preferring to hide from enemies than confront them. They are distrustful of strangers, but once the visitors have proven to be friends, the Mythwin consider them to be part of their society. Often allies will be swarmed by them, wanting to be taken on their next journey. A rather comical experience. By the law of the folk, only one of them will accompany a tribal ally to prevent their cities from being depopulated after a few visits. Somebody has to stay behind to help protect the village and support the neighbors. The Mythwin mate for life, selecting their partners early and having 5 to 6 children on average, with twins being common. If one mate perishes, the other one will quickly sicken and die as well. They mature quickly, reaching adulthood in approximately a year, with a strong urge to travel soon after. They typically have a clan leader whose position is handed down to their eldest child, but if the children decline the position, then the clan will democratically select a new leader. This isn't as uncommon as you think, as their short lifespans and desire to travel means the leadership turns over fairly quickly. This is in addition to their good nature and their willingness to get along. There are very few decisions ever needed for a Mythuinn village. They never travel far due to their small size and will always try to return to the village after they have gone a certain distance. Their ability to teleport at will helps them climb the mountains they inhabit easily and allows them to reach further in their exploration than they could by simply walking. They have no domesticated animals. As much as it would be great for them to ride a war marmot or a battle pika, sadly the Mythwin just walk and teleport everywhere. As much as they would love it, a harsh blow to the shin doesn't have the same impact as compared to other parts of the body. The creatures are omnivorous and will hunt other small animals as well as survive off grasses and berries. They have little in the way of agriculture because of their location, so will often travel to nearby areas to hunt, fish, and scavenge for fruits, nuts, and berries. They are a communal people, as if they don't work together, the entire village starves. Because of this, they don't have much in the way of treasure and coins, and any gems are kept for their aesthetic value rather than their monetary worth. They will trade with passerbys that they can trust for foodstuffs, and sweets are especially valued. The folk have little in the way of barter, but they can act as scouts with their teleportation and invisibility powers. They will also offer to share their food with allies, even if it's guppies and berries that might not be the meal most adventurers would be looking for. The Mythwin have very few enemies. That's not to say there aren't a lot of things that wouldn't eat them, but they are hard to find and can easily evade predators. If they encounter a menace, they just typically get back to their village before the enemy does. The only real menace to the folk is a race of flying wolverines called the Timonids, who find the small creatures a delicacy and hunt them frequently. They prefer to fly overhead than pounce before the folk can disappear or teleport away. They grab onto one of the unfortunate creatures and eat it before it can use its magical powers. They are the one threat that the folk live in fear of. The Timonids fly through the low clouds until they hear the squeaking of the Mythuinn, and then dive silently into the creatures below. On cloudy or foggy days, the Mythwin do not like to go outside and try to be as silent as possible, when they must. If you want to make friends with the entire village, bring them a Timonid pelt. The Mythwin have two allies they can call on for help. The ER, or Winged Elves, common in the arm of the Immortals mountain range, have long been an ally of the folk. They find the creatures good-natured, helpful, and one of the few friends the elves have. They will fly them around as a treat, provide them with excess food, and protect them from predators and natural disasters. The Mythwin will protect the elves with their luck powers, and many elves patrolling the area will do so with a Mythwin riding along in a chest pouch. There's a reason why the only other language spoken by most of the Mythwin is Elvish. The other creatures, strangely enough, are the crystalline dragons. This is largely because of their common environment. The Mythwin aren't even a snack for the dragons, and the dragons wouldn't even look twice at the small creatures. But what the folk have for the dragons is curiosity. They find the massive creatures fascinating and love hearing the dragons talk for hours about everything they've experienced. The dragon gets hundreds of little creatures keeping it company and are glad to hear its life story. The Mythwin folk get a protector that no one will mess with. Due to the short lives of the Mythwin, the dragon will recite the same tale to generations of them, and will often include stories of the folk's ancestors as well. The dragon will often have to use magic to understand the fast-talking creatures, but for the lonely dragons and the insatiably curious Mythwins, if they become neighbors, their relationship becomes almost symbiotic. The entry for the Mythwin folk flat out tells you that they're not creatures to be fought. They aren't much of a challenge at all. It's a bunch of teddy bears dealing 1d2 damage, and you can pump them further than they can teleport. But they are a surprise creature, as they only want to be seen on their terms. If the party looks friendly, and if they're in trouble, they can be rescued by these pint-sized do-gooders. Nothing like being dragged across the frozen tundra by a couple of hundred live-action Teddy Ruxpins who want nothing more than to help you. Of course, they could need your help, but you're going to need to talk to them, which is a problem in its own right. But if you play things right, you might have your own squeaky luckstone that accompanies you for a few adventures. The Mythwin are a bit of a paradox, and it's said they are found in the arm of the Immortals and hardly ever in the Cursed Lands, where they have proven to be immune to that effect. But their stat lines also say they are found in the Arctic or the mountains, with a rare appearance probability. The vaults have them running around Norwald and parts of Alphatia, and this being Mystara, we've got plenty of mountains to populate these guys. You can have them living around the top of Rockholm, especially if they become buddies with the mountain giants. The superstitious northern reaches might have tails of the eyes that follow them in the tallest mountains, but if you investigate, they all disappear at once. Only tiny footprints remain. They will be more common in Norwald and the Helden freeholds, especially in the far northern reaches with all the Arctic mountains. These tiny little guys are a neat monster race, but not one that's going to be useful as a playable one. Their teleport doesn't work if they're wearing armor, they can't carry much as a thief, they aren't known to cast spells, though there is a Mythuinn cleric in the vault's expanded Nordwald setting. They make great friends, they're always trying to help, and more importantly will jump in to distract a bad guy even if they put themselves at risk. These guys have your back, even if they are a little more than a distraction. Sometimes that's all you need. Just remember, if you ask them to scout for you, their normal voice is outside human hearing range. Next Mad Musing sends us back to Alphatia to look at another one of Bruce Hurd's expanded kingdoms, this time looking at the art-obsessed nation of Haven. This one will be much shorter than Forest Home, as he only did 3 sections on it instead of 18. Dress to impress, because the Queen abhors slobs. Until then, remember, Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear.